Yeah, so thank you for listening, and guess just going to do it informally and talk and answer questions. Ma'am?
Having lived as a protester on the streets of Vietnam, I'm very confused about why the nightly news isn't showing us. I know there's embedded reporters. I know that the information is there, that it's not coming across to us with Walter Cronkite every night. We're not seeing burning children. We're not. These images aren't really. They were shown at the dinner table during Vietnam. I mean, they're not shocking to me, except that it's shocking not to be shocking. But I ate dinner with those images for years, and that's why isn't that happening now? And you might not know that, but
I mean, what occurs to me initially is that the government has learned well the lesson of Vietnam in that when you see horrible images on your TV screen, you can't ignore them. And I know that if this was shown on TV, people would be outraged.
Really, is there censorship going on?
Absolutely. Not only is there censorship on TV, I mean, I've just come from a week of censorship in Hawaii high schools.
But is it the broadcast companies? Is it the government?
Does someone know more about this? This is far above my pay grade. I mean, I think that not only does it exist in the macrocosm, but really, and the way I interact with it, and maybe we can all fight it, is here in the microcosm. Because I've been, just spent a week talking in Hawaii high schools, and you would not imagine the resistance that principals give and how cowed the teachers are at the prospect of showing these images. And to me, it's irresponsible to not show it. And I was outraged that they demanded that I censor it, because to me it was like saying, pretend it doesn't exist, pretend it didn't happen. And if you guys, I'm sorry, you people, you gentlemen and ladies, are outraged, please do something here locally in Hawaii, because it would have made a world of difference to me if some parents and some community members had written letters of support for the local teacher, or had written outrage letters to the principal, and trying to break down those barriers. I would have really appreciated it, and I think it's something you can do to fight that censorship at the local level. So support the counter-recruitment groups and write to the schools, because I spoke to like 1,200 students in the last week, and I think it's a good way to get out the message. So if you're outraged about censorship, please fight it here at the local level. So
and censorship is maybe more self-imposed than...
It's out of fear. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily tyranny. It's that the teachers say, oh, I don't want to get in trouble, and my principal won't like this. And I think they feel that fear because nobody's backing them up. Nobody's saying, like, well, we're parents and we're with you, and we're community members and we're with you. So if we prop up the teachers, there's good progressive teachers in all these schools. And we could maybe give them some courage to
and why
show reality.
Kids out on the street this war?
I don't know. Well, the interest in the war is fading. Everybody thought like Obama is the Messiah and we'll sweep it all aside, and that's great. I was so happy he was elected, but the struggle continues. So ma'am.
Do you have support for yourself, like a Buddhist chaplain or anybody for you in the time of going?
Interestingly, the chaplain who presided over my CO application was I think he was a Baptist chaplain, but he was extremely supportive. I lent him all my books on Buddhism, and he read them, and he was like, yes, soldier, I think that you have an appropriate interpretation of Buddhism. I actually met one Buddhist chaplain in Iraq, but his perspective was that not only can I fight, but that I must and I should, and that Buddhism absolutely supported being in the military. So this was shocking to me, very different from the interpretation of Buddhism I had. But I definitely understand there are strains of kind of warrior Buddhism, maybe because of Japanese Zen and the interweaving with samurai culture and military culture. So there are certainly strains of militarist Buddhism, and I met one in Iraq. So I had support from the most unlikely of places, and where I counted on support was really not there. So.
Sir? Did you have any experience from your soldiers bringing up their religion, Christians and so on, and using it as a tool to downgrade or criticize like Muslims as part of the work, what they were doing, violence and so on?
I had a couple interactions with soldiers regarding their religion, which was generally Christianity. I mean, initially, the level of ignorance in my unit was that people told me that Osama bin Laden was the head of Islam, and that Muslims and Islam were two different religions. So we're dealing with a totally uninformed group. And the thing I would hear over and over again is that the difference between a Christian and a Muslim is that Muslims don't value life, which is a little paradoxical to me. But that was one of the predominant beliefs, and I think that's how Christian soldiers were able to separate themselves and say, well, we have a culture that values life, and their culture is death fetishistic and into martyrdom. I actually had a really great conversation with one of my sergeants who was a Christian, a Pentecostal. And I remember him telling me that killing was wrong, that nobody wanted to kill, but if you were to kill with no hate in your heart, that it would be okay. That was his perspective. And as a Buddhist, I remember I told him that I felt that killing itself was a hateful action that was impossible to do with a pure mind. So I think we're coming at it from different angles, and from his religiosity, the appropriate means justified the end, and for me, the means and the end were intertwined. So that was my interaction with Christianity in my unit.
Well, I have a whole different question. You mentioned culture shock with your troops when you arrive, but you also have a Peace Corps connection in your family, and it's the Peace Corps who identified that culture shock is really most severe for returnees. And so we know about soldiers who are having trouble when they return. That is out in the news, and I think people are sensitive to it, and my take is that that's something that the world is aware of. I'm really more interested in your personal story, because you came back and managed to get a book written, hit the road, and I'm really interested in how you were able to move through the despair and the life-changing circumstances to be actively doing something instead of just feeling it.
I think actually that those activities you speak of were very much part of my rehabilitation. When I returned, the last thing in the world I ever wanted to do was talk about Iraq. And now, paradoxically, I'm in the position of talking about it all the time. And the way I got started on this activist road was that I was so sick of students at my college asking me, did you kill anyone? What did you see in Iraq? How was it? That I said, okay, look, I'll do one slideshow presentation, and then I will never speak of it again. I'll just dispense with it all at once. And I did that, and people were shocked. And I was shocked that they were shocked. And that began this whole process of going and speaking and talking about it. But actually, speaking about it really eased the burden. Because I think the guys who suffered the worst were the people who felt they had no one to talk to, and they couldn't share any of their experience. And every time I share it, although it's still difficult, it's like lightening it, and it's not so dark and not so secret. And it made me feel a lot better. And it was the same writing the book. I didn't write the book and then sell it. They kind of pitched the idea to me. But as I was writing it, I found that it was very therapeutic because it allowed me to impose order and structure on this jumble of memories. And then putting it in order and telling it as a story, as a sequence, kind of made it make sense for me. And really, yeah, it allowed me to get through it. And I do it now, although it's not really a Buddhist concept. I do it now as kind of a penance, that I feel guilt and regret for what I did, and I want to make it right. So it's not that I enjoy coming and talking, which I certainly don't. I'm pretty shy, actually. It's that I feel that I have to, and that I'm required to, because of what I did and what I saw. Yeah. And that helps me get over it. The guys who just sit and mope on it are the ones who end up in psychiatric care, as many of my unit did. So, yeah. Miss?